Hello, my name is Beck and welcome to a very ambitious November to be read pile. I am putting a ton of books in this to be read list because if all goes to plan and if COVID doesn't mess things up for me, I'm going to be going in for jaw surgery in early November. And that has about a month, 3 weeks to a month long recovery at a basic level. So apart from being on mostly a liquid diet and being miserable and just walking around my house, surely I've got to do something that is entertaining to me, and that means reading, and I have a bunch of stuff to talk about, so hopefully I can get through this TBR list. It's going to be a struggle, but if I can get a few of these on audiobook to listen to, maybe while I play Animal Crossing, because there's a ton of new updates to that which I'm very excited about. Maybe I can listen to audiobooks at the same time and kind of amp up my audiobook stats, because I've not been listening to as many this year as I have in the past. But with all that said, let's jump into my list. Am I ambitious for putting this one first? Probably, but I have been putting it on so many TBRs in this year that I have to actually address it, and that is Caliban's War. This is the sequel to Leviathan Wakes. It's in the Expanse series, which is a large-scale sci-fi series. In general, I know there's a TV show, so if I don't love this book, I know that I've got the TV show that I can watch instead. I'm hoping that this is at least a 4 or above for me. If it's kind of a low 4 stars, I might DNF the series and watch the show instead. But I would like to tackle this because I've been putting it off because it is a long book with small writing, and up and down with my reading slumps means that I haven't had a concentration span like I have in the past. So hopefully I can get through this. That is ultimately the plan, because I'd like to get it off my TBR this year. I purchased it in like February and it's been a while, so I need to get it off this list. Another one that I really need to address and read is Dune. I got this, I think, at the beginning of this year or maybe the end of last year. Either way, it's a massive science fiction book because it's got such a fan base and it's going to have a movie, so I need to read this so that I know what all the hype is about. I've heard that it dumps you right into all of the things that are happening in this. It doesn't really stop to explain the world building, so I think this is one that I would really struggle with when it came to the audiobook, and reading the terms would really help me. I honestly do not know enough about this to tell you what the synopsis is. I just know that it's multiple perspective, there is multiple worlds, and there are giant sand monsters at some point. I don't even know if they occur in here or at the very end or even halfway or at the start. I don't know. I know there's monsters, I know it's science fiction, I know there are lots of different political factions. I think it's going to be epic, but I need to make sure I physically read this, not audiobook this, because I think if I audiobook this, it's going to put me in a bit of strife, and I want to be able to absorb all the terms and love this world. Next is a book that I thought I wouldn't read this year, and I'd planned to put it on my 2022 owned TBR list, but I got the audiobook for it, and it is 100,000 Kingdoms. Did I get that right? The 100,000 Kingdoms. I'm going to get this title wrong every video I make, and it's by N.K. Jemisin, who wrote the 5th season series, and I've loved that series because it's like an apocalyptic science fiction fantasy story, which are like my 3 favorite genres combined. But I haven't really read too much else by her, not her backlist either, and I'm wanting to read more of her work, so naturally that's why I bought this one too. I want to get The Killing Moon and read that too, but it will really depend on how much I like this first, because I'm going through kind of her backlist at the moment. I've read The City We Became and I gave it about a 4 stars. It wasn't really the tone I was after, so I'm hoping that this really delivers. And again, I don't know what it's about. I think it says gods and mortals, power and love, death and revenge, she will inherit them all. So hopefully I can absorb this easily on audiobook. If I can listen to audiobooks while I play Animal Crossing, I bet I'm going to smash through a ton of books on this list, including The Furies of Calderon, which is by Jim Butcher. This is an author that wrote the Dresden Files, and I am obsessed with that series, so I wanted to start something else by him to see if I liked other stuff or it was just the Dresden Files, and I anticipate that I'm going to really enjoy this. There's also The Aeronaut's Windlass that I really want to read as well, because I've heard the audiobook for that is incredible, but I'm just going to stick to this for now and limit myself and not go crazy. I say that, and I have a massive stack of books on the floor next to me, and all of them are quite thick. So cross your fingers for me. I know this is a fantasy book. It's about a character on a quest potentially, and it incorporates Digimon or Pokemon kind of vibes into it, and I'm not really sure how those things blend together, but I loved Pokemon growing up, so I anticipate that I'm going to really like the general premise of this. It's just whether the characters and the writing style hook me as well, and I'm anticipating they will, because I'm a real character reader, and Jim Butcher tends to write characters incredibly well, especially from what I've seen in the Dresden Files, so I have high hopes for this one. Next is one that I've heard mixed opinions on, because people think that I won't like this, and I'm quite concerned that I might not. It is Kushal's Dart by Jacqueline Carey, and this is one that you have to read and get about 100 pages into it, or 150 pages, because literally on page 151 it really twists and turns. So I'm going to give this 151 pages, and if I don't like it, I'm going to DNF it. I know the character in here encounters BDSM, and I know there are very explicit sex scenes in here, which generally aren't my thing, but if it's consensual, if it goes with the character in the story, then I'm all for it. I've heard this described as urban fantasy, but when I said that in a previous video, I had a ton of people saying it's not that. So I'm not going to say that's what it is this time, because obviously I haven't read it. Again, it's very thick. I'm not a huge fan of this cover. We're just going to cover her up. Hopefully I like it. I have a lot of trepidation about starting this one, because so many people came out of the woodwork and they were like, I don't think you'll like it. And I got this based on a friend's recommendation, and she really pitched it to me. So for her sake, I really hope that I enjoy it, because obviously I buy books that I think I will potentially enjoy, not to hate review. So hopefully I really like this based on her recommendation, but we will see. If you have thoughts about this, non-spoiler please, let me know in the comments. And now I have a massively hyped fantasy book. Well, not massively hyped, it's only hyped up because I watch Elliot Brooks's channel and she talks about the Ninth Reign quite a lot. This is the Winnowing Flame trilogy, I think that's what it's called. And again, I don't know too much about this one. The city of Abora was once glittered with gold, now its streets are stalked by wolves, so it sounds like a regressed society. I think there are monsters in here, so it's a fantasy with monsters involved and supernatural creatures involved. It's set in an entirely created place, so I love a high fantasy that has a new world in it. I think I'm gonna really like this. But I also read Fireborn, and that was a book that Elliot Brooks's channel hyped up quite a lot, and I only gave it about a 3.5 stars. So our reading tastes often co-align, but sometimes they really diverge. So I hope they don't diverge on this one, because I'm anticipating it's going to be like a diamond in the rough and I'm going to love this. And I've heard people a lot in comments reiterating that same thought. So I really hope I fall on the bandwagon feet first with everybody else who seems to love this series, but only time will tell. And now I have another audiobook, and it is Theft of Swords. This one is done by the same audiobook narrator that did Red Rising, and I loved him in Red Rising. I think his name is Tim Gerard Reynolds. He made Darrow's voice, who's the main character. He made his internal voice different with the accent to the external voice that Darrow used, because Darrow was trying to hide his upbringing, and he also had such inflection and interesting takes on all the other characters. So even though it was only one voice actor, it sounded like a whole cast, because he just pulled off everyone's voices and accents so well. So I'm really looking forward to him doing this book, because I think he's really going to immerse me in it. And I've heard that this, because it was a slow beginning, that it has a lot of like tropes in it that fantasy is known for, but it doesn't do them particularly well to begin with, and it takes a while to warm up. So I think I'm going to help crest that hurdle by listening to the audiobook. Again, this one, still don't know a lot, but I do love the 3-line synopsis at the very top of the blurb, which I will read to you. They killed the king, they pinned it on 2 men, but they chose poorly. That is an awesome hook. It sounds like a heist kind of murder mystery, but also set in a fantasy world with found family potentially, and characters banding together in order to rebel and get away with crimes. It sounds awesome, and obviously that's why I've got it. So I hope it becomes another series that I'm super invested in, but that also means that that's another series that I'm currently reading, which is a lot of pressure, but we're just diving headfirst into starting a whole bunch of series this year. I guess that's what it's gonna be. And now a book that I did not get to start in the Magical Readathon during September, and that is Legendborn by Tracy Dion. This is a book that has a main character going to college, but in addition to that, it's like a dark academia and magic, because there is this whole underground society at this college that deals in magic, and there's also a murder potentially linked to this main character because her mother passed away, but she thought it was just a natural causes death or something, and it turns out that there's a murder mystery involved. And so I think she's trying to solve that as well as study at this college, and she also has an innate magical ability, and I like all of those things in a nice mixing pot, so it'll be nice to see how this is pulled off. I have heard that the main character learns magic really quickly in a very like short couple of day montage, which frustrates me because it should be earned and a grown experience, but sometimes you've just got to excel things to make your plot work. So I think that's going to be one of the things I dislike. But other than that, I'm really hoping that I love the rest of this. It is on my 5-star predictions video, so naturally I'm expecting it to be listed quite high for me, and if it delivers, it delivers. I just read the synopsis of the next book, like that little blurb at the top, and it really speaks to me. This one is a book that I've had sitting on my TBR for a couple of months, but I haven't really addressed it because I knew that I would talk about it in a book haul coming up, and I knew that if I didn't read it in November, I'd push it off to 2022. So it wasn't one that I was absolutely stressing myself out that I had to finish this year. But the top part of the blurb says, "Life as a knight is not what veteran Chell imagined. Bound by oath to a dead-end job in the service of a lazy step uncle, Chell no longer dreams of glory. He dreams of going home." Honestly, same. I don't dream of life in a dead-end job, even if it's a knight. So this really speaks to me already. This character's seeming general sarcasm and morose potential kind of humor already appeals to me. It has vibes of what Kings of the Wild was like, where these characters are definite veterans and they're not heroes of young anymore, but they've got to go on a quest anyway and they're kind of disgruntled about it, but they do it regardless. It has this similar kind of tonal vibe to that, and I really enjoyed Kings of the Wild, so I'm hoping and anticipating that I enjoy this one too, because it sounds great just in that top bit of the synopsis. And again, this cover is gorgeous. It's the kind of cover that I love seeing on a fantasy novel. It's not a photo of somebody's face, it's kind of just like a watercolor of their face. It looks cool, it sounds great. I'm hoping that I like it. I've not seen anybody talk about this, so after I read it, I'll let you know if I liked it or not. And then we have Middle Game by Seanan McGuire. This is the author that wrote the Every Heart a Doorway series, and they're behind this stack of books, the few books in that series. I like those as portal fantasies because they tackle characters who go into magical worlds, kind of like the kids going into Narnia and then coming back and having to reassimilate. It's a really cool concept. This one is very different. It's also a standalone, and the magic system in here is alchemy. We deal with two twins who have been separated and they can communicate telepathically, and I don't know much further beyond that kind of synopsis, and I don't want to know too much about it either because I'd like to go into this fairly unknowing. I like the way that Seanan McGuire has written character, queerness, and relationships between characters, so hopefully she writes them very well in here and it becomes a book that I love. But I'm a bit hesitant because I've read other stuff by her and I haven't loved it, so I wonder whether this will be something that I enjoy or something that I go, unpopular opinion, I actually didn't like it. So I'm quite intrigued to start this and hopefully the writing grabs me. And then lastly, I have The Bone Shard Daughter. I think this is young adult. I'm not quite sure. I will report back. I know it obviously has bone shard magic and maybe necromancy kind of styled magic in it. It deals with a daughter, and I think she's the daughter to the royal family. So I don't know if it's like a lost princess kind of story or if it's royal rebellion, but either way, I'm on board. I'm intrigued because it's also apparently got a female-female romance in it, and I tend to really like the way queer characters are portrayed in fantasy when they're done really well, and I'm always looking for more recommendations like that. So if you have any more, let me know. But this is the last book on my ridiculous November TBR. Okay, there are 11 books. Usually I read like 3 to 5 books in a month, so this is literally double what I would read. But given that I'm going to be bedbound and recovering from getting my jaw broken, probably going to be more realistic that I read a lot, so keep your fingers crossed. We'll see how many I can actually finish. If any of these are on your TBR as well, let me know in the comments below. But thank you so much for watching this video. I'll come chat to you down in the comments and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.